I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Report. Welcome to our Thursday show. My name is Tom Baker. I am your co-host, along with both Kyle Souza and Jacob Seelman tonight. All three of us sitting at the Speed 77 Radio round table, talking racing with you on a gorgeous Thursday night in Charlotte. Kyle, of course, coming to us from the New England area, and hopefully it's at least kind of as nice there, Kyle.
Well, Tom, I'm in the 60s this afternoon in sunshine, and the forecast for the weekend racing actually looks sunny and in the 60s as well, so I'll agree. It has been nice up here.
There you go. All right. Well, good to have you back, Kyle, and definitely excited about talking some racing here on the Thursday night, and with you as well, Jacob, our Speed 77 Radio producer as well as co-host, and doing both jobs with equal precision. And guys, we have got a really fun show tonight and a fun interview to start with here. But before we get to the interview, Kyle, let's talk about what Keith Rocco accomplished last weekend at Waterford.
Well, Tom, and not only for him, I'm sure this is something for him that happens a lot. He won 3 races last Sunday afternoon at the Waterford Speed Bowl. For those that didn't know, the Blast-Off weekend was scheduled for the last weekend in March. Well, that Mother Nature took care of and moved it to this past weekend down there, up there in Connecticut for you guys, and a little bit down for me. Rocco in domination mode. Saturday, he won the qualifiers for the SK, the late model, and the Valenti Modified Racing Series. And he went on to win all 3 of their features, dominating the SK and Valenti portion and using a couple of late restarts to push his way to the front of the pack after an early incident in the late model main event. And Tom, this is nothing new for Keith. Keith dominates Waterford whenever he's behind the wheel. These Valenti guys were shocked at what he could do. That car was absolutely flying around the bowl on Sunday afternoon.
Okay, we understand, Kyle, that Keith dominates Waterford. But 3 shows in 3 different cars in the same night. Jacob, I'm going to turn to you. We talk every now and then about somebody in NASCAR where, okay, we have a truck race, let's say on a Friday and a nationwide on a Saturday and a cup race on a Sunday, and somebody like Kyle Busch in all 3. And we talk about how amazing that is when that happens, because even that's so rare. But Jacob, 3 different cars, 3 different divisions in the same night. Have you ever heard of that happening before? Because I've been racking my brain trying to figure out if I'd ever seen it.
I'm going to have to agree with you, Tom. I can't think of a time that I've seen it in my years doing this either. This is absolutely incredible, but it's something that Keith Rocco has made a habit of doing over the last couple of seasons at not just Waterford, but the races he runs at Stafford, at Thompson. Wherever he is in Connecticut, Keith Rocco is the guy to beat pretty much every single week, no matter what track he's racing at. He's been the Connecticut State Champion 6 years running. That is no fluke. I keep waiting for the day that he's going to win the Whelen All-American Series National Championship, because he's been so close so many times over the last 5 or 6 years. Never quite has gotten there the last 2 or so years, only because some guy named Lee Pulliam came along, but Rocco has perched himself atop the standings before. I should have said I'm waiting for it to happen again, because we know he's good. It's just a matter of now that Pulliam is not running, we think, for the national title a 3rd straight year, will it be Rocco that reasserts himself back on top, Kyle?
Well, Rocco's got a strong case for that, running full-time at Waterford in both the late model and the SK division. He's going to run the Thompson Speedway events that are going to be put on, of course, the of course, over the season, and then he's going to run a couple of open shows that we really haven't seen Keith go towards in the past. He's going to be competing in the TriStar Track Open Series in the modified portion up here in the Northeast. Rocco is going to be on one of those trends like Ryan Preece was last year, get in as many race cars as he can, and it's been dominant for Rocco. Waterford's been his track over the last couple of years. It was said a couple of years ago that Seekonk Speedway was Vinny Anarumo's house. Well, Tom, Waterford is Keith Rocco's house.
Yes, and I do believe he's going to confirm in the interview that he is not the first driver to have pulled the hat trick at Waterford, but I just wanted to make clear that when I was saying I didn't think it had ever happened before, I've never seen it in my lifetime happen before. I think the first time was something like 64 years ago. And, of course, I'm the reverse of that. I'm 46. You guys much younger. None of us have lived to see that. Hey, Jacob, let's roll the tape. Keith Rocco, welcome to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. Glad to have you on tonight. Keith, first of all, let's talk about the start of the season and the Thompson Icebreaker. Kind of a mixed blessing for you. Yeah, Thompson started off pretty good. The opening weekend at Thompson, their big show, the 2 days also conflicted with the Waterford Speed Bowl schedule on Saturday night. So I had to run 2 racetracks same weekend. But Thompson, we qualified good, started up front in the race, and I was actually able to pull down a win for the SK and the late model, and also run back to the Waterford Speed Bowl on Saturday night and pick up the late model win there, and also coming from the back of the pack in the SK, we were able to a second place finish, which a couple more laps we would have had to win there too. No question about it. A tough, kind of a tough transition there over a couple days. 2 completely different types of racetracks to compete at. Yeah, it's quite the challenge. To be honest with you, the hardest part is having nobody realizes it, but you got to have you got to have a hauler for each track. You got the we actually ran the same late model at both tracks. We didn't qualify at Thompson. We just showed up and started last on Sunday, but the SK, had to borrow a trailer to get, keep the car at the other track overnight. So it's pretty tough, traveling back and forth. The cars were very well prepared, but it is tough, going back and forth and trying to make qualifying round at Waterford, and that's the hardest part. But I got a great team behind me. They follow me. They give me 110%, and all friends and family. But those are the best people to have behind you. No question about it, and kind of a tough break there with the late model and the issue following the Thompson race there after getting the win. But I'm sure that you'll rebound and look forward to a great season with that. Oh, I think we already took care of that and proved ourselves. They found a flex plate illegal. The rule didn't give a part number, it didn't give a weight, it didn't give a brand, and very gray area, but we changed that this week, and we went to the Waterford Speed Bowl, and we pretty much pulled off the impossible. In 64 years, it's only been done once, and that was 64 years ago. I was able to win all 3 features in the same day. I won the SK feature, I won the late model feature, and I won the Valente Modified Racing Series feature, which were all extra distance races. The Modified Racing Series was 100 laps, the SK was 64 laps, and the late model was 50 laps. So, pretty cool accomplishment we were able to take down this weekend. It was, and that was actually going to be my next question, was how in the world do you get into 3 different cars and go win a race at the same track on the same night? I don't know that I've ever heard of that anywhere in the sport, let alone, a short track like Waterford. But I guess you pretty much answered that. I mean, it's got to be great for you as a driver to have the people and the teams behind you to be getting in such stout equipment every time out. No, it's absolutely such a great feeling to have people behind you like I have. I have John and Maynard Rafano from Wheeler's Auto. They own the VMRS car, and they own the Stafford SK, and they own the Tour car. And they're great people. They're basically like family to me. And I have Scott Fern. He's an awesome guy. He owns my late model. Very entertaining guy. Very fun to be around.
and always laughing and joking. But he gives me anything I need for that car. There's no question. He gives me the best car possible, and I own my Thompson car, my Waterford car, with the backing of Mr. Rooter Plumbing, Vinny Beadle. He's new on board this year, and he's really helping my team come to its full potential. But like a weekend like this, once you get to the racetrack, my cars are prepared 110%. When I get there, I'm not making changes. I don't have it on jack stands. I get there, I do my tires, we put them on, and we go racing. That's all there is to it. And it makes it look almost easy because the cars are always spot on. And I ran the SK race, and I had one race between that and the late model race. I was able to get out and go to victory lane with the SK and stuff. But I ran the late model, and I won with that. And we didn't even get a chance to go to victory lane. I had to pull her in the tech and jump out of that and jump right in the MRS car. So definitely a packed schedule. I think I ran a total of 214 laps on Saturday, which is pretty much more laps than most guys run in a month at that racetrack.
Yeah, it seems like it's a very demanding racetrack too.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. It's tough on your neck. It's tough. A lot of you're constantly turning there. You really never get straight, and it's just a lot on the driver. But running as many laps as I do, you get used to it pretty quick. A couple weeks ago, our opening day, I went home a little sore after the night just because it was not racing all winter, and last week I was good to go, ready to take another 100 laps on.
Talk about what you got coming up ahead for the season. Where can we find you, and with what divisions, and how much racing are you going to do this year with all those cars?
You could find me at any racetrack in Connecticut on any given night. If there's two tracks running the same day on the bigger shows, I find my way back and forth. But I'm going to do all the Connecticut races, including SKs, late models, and the modified racing series, and also hopefully all the tour races for the Connecticut shows. I'm looking to branch out a little bit and hopefully run an ACT tour race here coming up at Devil's Bowl Speedway on, I believe, May 4th.
Very nice.
And just whatever else pops up, I'll drive anything that has four wheels and a steering wheel.
I love racers like you. I love that attitude. Just give me the race car. If it's safe and it's competitive, I'll jump in it and drive it.
Yeah, it's just what I love doing. I mean, it's what I live for. It's the only way of life I know.
Well, you're certainly not alone in that. And speaking of not being alone, I know you've mentioned and acknowledged some of your team owners and want to give you an opportunity to expand and talk about any of your sponsors on any of the cars or anything that you missed before we let you go.
I have a bunch. I can go on and on, but the major. Feel free. Are Vinny Beadle, Mr. Rooter Plumbing, D&G Pave and B&M Maintenance, Wheeler's Auto, VP Race Fuel, FK Rod Ends, Pergola Performance Systems, Griffin Radiators, FMR Racing, and my boss Mike Pettit Racing Engines for the awesome horsepower, Magnus Transmissions, Bassett Wheels. The list just goes on and on. To have an operation like I have, you can't do it without great sponsors and great suppliers.
How can the race fans who are listening to this show keep up with your season?
Race fans can follow me on Twitter at KidRockRacing, just at KidRockRacing, or I have a fan page that's Keith Rocco Racing, and I'm pretty sure you just keep an eye on NASCAR Home Tracks page, and hopefully we'll be up front in the standings.
Well, and that would certainly give you a lot of FaceTime on that page for sure. Keith Rocco, Racers, and off to a great start this year. Plenty more to come. We look forward to talking with you more on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show as the season progresses. We appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you. Great to be on.
Tom, I gotta say, I'm impressed. He wins 3 races in the same day at the same racetrack, and yet his newest focus is just getting ready and where am I going to go and win the next one.
Yeah, I got to tell you, there aren't too many drivers. I mean, I know that essentially the modified cars are similar, the SK and the modified, but In the late models, not totally out of the family, but it's still a little different breed of car. It needs to be driven a little differently. But, there's not a lot of drivers that could pull something like that off. But there are still several drivers in the New England area that I think obviously are very capable of it. Keith just has the opportunities that a lot of them don't have to do the crossover into those divisions. But that's, like I said, a racer's racer. When you can do something like that, and when you have the ability and are fortunate enough to be able to go race just for the sake of racing, that's a pretty happy life, I would guess.
Yeah, it really is. Keith Rocco is the man on top of that happy pillar, if you will, at the moment. After winning all of the triple header last weekend at Waterford, he definitely blasted off into the stratosphere.
Certainly did. Kyle, I got to tell you, you're up in the New England area and you cover this stuff on a regular basis. It's just so common to be talking about Keith Rocco at the top of a field somewhere, and yet even just to think about 3 races in one night and 3 wins, that's just amazing, and the amount of luck that you have to pull that off as well.
Tom, it's not only that. Rocco gets in anything he wants up here and dominates. It was this past weekend a late model, an SK, and a Valenti. And even if the SK and the Valenti are somewhat similar, they're 2 separate race cars that drive completely different around Waterford. One's got more horsepower than the other. One handles differently than the other. This guy just has pure talent. And anywhere he goes, not only up here in the Northeast, if he was to go down south and have a good piece of equipment, he'd be in the front. Keith just has the pure talent. The equipment at this point is one of the top-notch pieces of equipment that he drives in the Northeast. And that number 68 that he drove the Valenti Modified Racing Series win to this past Sunday was absolute domination at Waterford. I talked to some of the drivers this past week. I spoke to Todd Anarumo, driver of the 12. He said that car was just flat-out fat. They couldn't catch him. Even if their car was dead on, they just could not get to him. Rocco's got talent, Tom. He's got equipment, and he's just at the top of the notch right here up here in New England in any race car.
Absolutely. No question about it. And we'll talk a little bit more New England racing, get a little report from you before the end of the show on what else might be going on up there. But for the moment, let's take a trip south, down closer here to the Charlotte area. Actually, we'll stop in Virginia along the way. Langley Speedway ran a Whelen Southern Modified Tour show, and Jacob, we've been talking about it for the last 3 or 4 weeks on this show, wondering not if, but when GB3 was going to get a checkered flag. We now know when.
Yes, we do now know when, and that when was last Saturday. Definitely a big run for GB3. Crosses Langley off the personal checklist as far as tracks he has won at. His 11th track all-time on the tour that GB3 has gone to victory lane at. 21st career Whelen Southern Modified Tour victory. And who does he beat to do it? Oh, I don't know. Andy Seiss. It's not like those two have finished 1, 2, 5 of the last 8 races or anything. I mean, they're not that good, are they, Tom?
Well, I don't know if they're that good, but it definitely was. I got to tell you, this modified tour down here in the South is shaping up to be one whale of a battle this year. And it was about time that Georgie got back to victory lane. You know, Jacob, it's one of those situations where you can't keep a champion down forever, and you can't keep GB3 out of victory lane forever either. And he was real close these first few races. It wasn't that he wasn't there or competitive. Just things didn't fall his way, and then last week they finally did.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, he finished second, third, and second in the first 3 races, and we were just waiting for that win. He was right there all the time. He just couldn't find that last little bit to get to victory lane, but he finally found it at Langley. Gets the win over Andy Seiss. Tough day for Kyle Ebersole. He has a practice crash and is not able to start the event, so that's a really tough blow to his championship hopes after running so strong, getting his first tour win last season at Caraway. He's done very, very well, and would look to see Kyle Ebersol back in the saddle and back challenging for a win here in the coming weeks. But you're right, Saturday it was all about GB3, and this coming Saturday there's a show coming up for them, their Southern Modifieds as well. But you know what? We're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to step away for a moment and take a caution flag. But when we come back, we'll let you know exactly where the SoMods are traveling to this weekend before they take their mid-spring vacation, if you will. So that's coming up right after these words. You are listening to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
For Nationwide drivers, every race matters. They have everything to win and everything to lose. With every win, they're closer to winning the Nationwide title. With every loss, they're closer to losing it all. They're not just racing for points, they're racing for a future. And only a checkered flag separates obscurity from greatness. This is the Nationwide Series.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman alongside Tom Baker and Kyle Souza as we're here on a Thursday night for another round of pavement, late model, modified, and short track conversation. And Tom, we were just starting to talk about the Southern Modified Tour before the break, and it is Easter weekend, and though the NASCAR Top 3 series are all off this weekend, and for that matter, most of the world in motorsports is off this weekend, save for them their weird Formula One wine and cheese feasting people who think it's necessary to race in China this weekend, but you know, that's their call and Joel's deal. Won't get into that, but the Southern Modifieds are running on Saturday at Caraway. I always love a good pre-Easter party.
Yeah, we've got a couple of good pre-Easter parties around here. We'll talk about the second one in a minute, but yeah, the Southern Mods back at Caraway again, where it all began this season with one of the dominating runs by Andy Seiss, and one of the races in which GB3 was in the hunt, but just didn't quite get there. That opening show was a fantastic show, and I only wish that I could be 2 places at once, because there's 2 tracks about, maybe an hour, hour and a half apart here in North Carolina that I would desperately love to be at. One of them is Caraway for the Southern Willen Modified Tour race, Jacob. The other one is where you and I are going, which is the Hickory Motor Speedway and the Pass Late Model event, the Easter Bunny 150.
Insert cheer here. Woo!
Well, it's definitely going to be a really big shoe, as Ed Sullivan used to say back in the 60s. That race is just one of those races for the late models, the past type late models, super late models, that just draws everybody and their brother who races a super late model is in town for that. It's really, in this part of the country anyway, it is really one of the biggest late model shows, and one of those that you want the trophy from on your mantle for sure. And it's looking like 35 to 40 cars, quite possibly, in the pits at Hickory on Saturday for that show.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be absolutely huge, Tom. You've got the general favorites, the Jay Fogelmans, the Daniel Hemricks of the world, but then you've also got the young rookies who really have been running well and want to try to make their mark. The Trevor Knowles, the Jared Irvins, the Tate Fogelmans, all these young guns that are going to be looking to maybe wrest a trophy away from the veterans of the field. I still think a veteran's going to take it home. I have a feeling it might just be Daniel Hemrick, who's been oh so good on the Pass South Tour so far this season. But, that's a whole other story in itself. And like you said, we'll get to that in just a little bit. But, we're still talking Southern Modifieds here. They're going this weekend before the Easter break. You mentioned back to the place where it all started this season. How about back to the place where it all started, period? Caraway, not just the site of the season opener, but the site of the very first race ever for the Whelen Southern Modified Tour back in 2005, won by Ted Christopher. Andy Seiss going to be looking to tie George Bernhozel III this weekend for the most wins in Tour history at Caraway. Andy's got 9, Bernhozel's got 10, including all 10 wins coming in his last 20 appearances at Caraway Speedway, so he's been more than a little good there. But, Tom, you were talking about back in the 60s. You can remember back that far?
I saw tape, Jacob. YouTube is a wonderful tool, besides which, even you should remember the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, my goodness, that's where the Beatles started. Oh, wait, the Beatles. So it's definitely going to be a great show at Caraway for sure. And yeah, that is the place where the Southern Modified Tour started. I think it's also one of the tracks where, for whatever reason, they put on the best shows. I mean, and I think with the combination, again, the rookies that we've got in the series, which we've talked about quite a bit, plus the veterans, I mean, you just really never know what's going to happen. And I think it's going to be a great time at Caraway on Saturday night. And if you're up that way, Asheboro, North Carolina, and you want to see some great open wheel style modified racing with a lot of horsepower, that's where to go, is the Caraway Speedway.
That is absolutely right, and it's gonna be a great show, because you're right, they always put on great shows at Caraway. That's part of the reason they go there as often as they do. I know it's the de facto home track for the tour, you'd say, but Caraway, just a very special place for short track racing. It always seems to put on fantastic racing, no matter what division runs there, whether it's the modifieds or whatever else you want to put on the just under a half-mile bull ring up there. But this weekend's race also special for one more reason, because the previous tour race at Caraway was rained out, Tom, and we're waiting on a rescheduled date for that one. So this weekend's event will actually be the 50th all-time Whelen Southern Modified Tour race at Caraway. I can think of more than a few people that would like to put their name in the record books as a winner of that great race.
Yeah, that's true. I did not realize that. So that's a great stat, and it just, again, it's about the speedway itself and the fact that the Whelen Southern Modified Tour and modifieds in general have been such a big part of Caraway Speedway in one form or another for, well, as at least much longer than I've been in this area, and they just seem to go together. So it should be a great show out. I would expect that you're going to see, Andy Seiss, you're going to see GB3, you're going to see the Myers brothers all up front, and I got to tell you, we mentioned this guy a couple times, but Danny Bone could very well be one of these drivers that, we haven't had really a surprise winner, I don't think, this year. But Danny Bone certainly would be a driver, especially at Caraway, who could get it done this weekend, that probably would be a little bit unexpected, though I'm sure much applauded.
Oh, absolutely. And while we're talking about surprises, can I throw you a real curveball before we go to break? How about maybe Joe Ryan Osborne being in the mix at the end of 150 laps on Saturday?
Well, that's entirely possible. Joe Ryan's a rookie, and if I remember right, he qualified 5th, I think, for the first show at Caraway, and he actually ran in the top 5 for a good part of the first half of the race. And so I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Joe Ryan with a good, strong run in this event, but and even contending. I mean, I believe firmly that both he and Spencer Davis in the Hillbilly Racing car, we've talked about this before, I think both of them are going to get wins before this season is out, and I think you're going to see both of them contend for top 5s more often than not as we get into the second half of the year, but it wouldn't surprise me to see Joe Ryan up there, and that would be really nice. That team works hard, and Joe Ryan's a great kid, and he's a good young racer who's learning the ropes pretty quickly in the mods, for sure.
Yeah, he is. I mean, Grady Jeffries and that whole number 15 team behind Joe Ryan Osborne, they have thrashed. They have worked super hard over this off season to get the equipment underneath this young man to contend. Joe Ryan, just very, very solid driver. Doesn't tear up the equipment. He's got the right focus, and I feel like he is going to make some noise on the Southern Tour before this season's over. I've said it since the beginning, but he just keeps getting better and better with each race he runs. The qualifying's getting better. His racecraft is getting better. He's not been out of the top 10 yet this season. So we'll see how that shakes out. But there's my dark horse for the weekend. And with that, we will take another caution flag here on the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. When we come back, we're going to talk past racing and some more Easter eggs and such things that'll be in the basket. Tom, I'm excited to try and find me some candy this weekend if we're going to Hickory. But we'll be right back here to Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading materials supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit stockcarsteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
All I wanted to do was just pick up a guitar and sing praise songs.
From IamSecond.com.
Well, when I got to 17, I was playing in after-hours bars, just in a bunch of trouble.
Grammy Award winner Michael W. Smith.
Smoking that first joint and feeling so guilty about it. From there, it was LSD, and your compass sort of just like disappeared. I knew where I belonged. I just couldn't get out. I was very depressed. I went on the floor and just began to shake. And I was just weeping. I was weeping. And I just began to just cry out for God. 12:30 at night, on the linoleum floor of my kitchen, the God of the universe came and wept with me on that floor. I know where my hope lies. It's not being a rock star. I'm a son of the High King of the universe.
Watch Michael's story at IamSecond.com.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports show here on Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Souza around the round table tonight. And gentlemen, I'm excited because I get to go back to the racetrack this weekend. Kyle, I know most of everything a little quiet up there for you this weekend, but Tom, you and I are getting ready to talk some Pass Super Late Model racing this weekend, specifically the Pass South Tour that's going to be invading Hickory Motor Speedway this weekend for the annual 150. I think we're up to the 9th running of this event this year, if my math is correct. So it's always an exciting race. It's become one of the most heralded races, short track races on the entire Southeast radar, if you will. This race in particular, one of those crown jewel events that everybody wants to win. Everybody comes out to try to win, and usually there's about 10 or 15 guys that force themselves into a hole by the end of the race thinking that they can win.
Yeah, it is one of those shows for sure that generally gets a little bit hairy at the end of it, but yeah, and that's because it's such a prestigious show. I mean, it has just gotten, again, it's just one of those shows that really has developed itself into a race that everybody wants on their mantle. They all want to win the trophy. And I got to tell you, this year, with the mix of drivers that will be in the field between, as you said, the Pass regulars and some of the young guys and some of the invaders who don't run full-time, including Patrick Staropoli, who is going to be in the field this weekend with his super late model. So, you know, that makes it a really interesting show for the fans.
Hang on. Run that by me one more time. West Boy's coming and running all the way over here. I like this.
Patrick Staropoli announced on his Instagram that he is going to be racing the number 71 General Auto Repair and Tire Peak Auto Late Model at Hickory Motor Speedway this weekend in the Easter Bunny 150.
Instagram. That's so 2011. Let's get with the program here, people.
Hey, I just joined. Leave me alone.
That's great, though. I mean, that's a boost for the field for sure. Staropoli coming off that big K&M West win at Irwindale. He's still carrying that momentum, and I'd have to imagine he's excited to come to another one of these bullring-type short tracks and really try to showcase what he's got. You know, it's going to be an exciting race. Of course, you've got the regulars, as always, but even some of the North guys are coming down to try to run this race since it's an off weekend for the Pass North Tour. You got guys like Ben Rowe, who's dominated up north for years and years, and now he comes down south for some of these big shows. And, you know, it's not just a Pass South race, it's a Pass National Championship race as well. So if it weren't pressure-packed enough, that just increases the pressure cooker even more, Kyle.
You know what, Jacob, and it actually does. You guys talking about Pass South, and I'm really not too fond of what's going to be going on with the Pass North up here over the past couple of seasons. Speaking with the Pass North officials, I actually spoke with a gentleman a couple of weeks ago that was up here in the Northeast talking about the Pass Tour. And the sad part about it is, and my home track at least, the Pass Tour no longer coming to the Seacock Speedway. They're only going to Thompson for certain events now because of the schedule change. But this Pass deal up here in the North is one of these things where, Tom, we talk about a lot the Northern Modified Tour that just came across up here in the Northeast is kind of starting to fall apart while the Southern Tour is there. It's kind of the opposite with Pass. Maybe the Northern Tour is starting to lose the car count a little bit, and where you guys are, this Southern Tour is really picking up pace with the Pass South, and I'm really interested to seeing what's going to happen with this Pass South, because, Tom, we've seen great kids come out of this series, such as Ryan Blaney.
Well, yeah, there have been several that have come through Pass and moved on up and into other things. And again, that's really a matter of location, but I don't think I'd write the Pass North series off just yet there, Kyle. I think there's going to be some interesting stuff happening with that this year. As a matter of fact, I might just have some inside information. We need to go to the Race Chaser online tape recorder and hit the button to talk to Alan Dietz, the spokesman for the Pass Late Model Series.
Alan Dietz, welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. Time to talk Easter. As an Easter bunny, you got a big one coming up at Hickory Motor Speedway this Saturday night. Tell us about it.
Yeah, the Easter Bunny 150, in a short amount of time, this will be the 9th one, but really has I think, established itself as the biggest super late model race in the country for the spring. And I think, it's right up there in the top 5 or 10 overall, as far as short track races go for the year. I mean, it's really grown, and we get a lot of support from the guys that race and pass up in New England and Canada. They've really made a tradition of coming down for this race ever since it started back in 2006, and a lot are coming down this time, and should be a great race.
It should be a great race. Now, let's step backward for a moment. The last Pass South race that you ran at Orange County was a real barn burner with Roger Lee Newton and Trevor Knowles duking it out to the end. Talk a little bit about that, and talk about some of the drivers that you would expect that we would see in contention for the win at Hickory this weekend.
Well, the race at Orange County was great. Roger Lee Newton and Trevor Knowles from the drop of the green flag, if I'm not mistaken, they started on the front row, and they kind of duked it out the entire race. And Trevor Knowles was a little bit better on longer runs, but Roger Lee Newton was way better on restarts and could always seem to get him on restarts. But the last restart, had about 30 laps to go, and Roger Lee had been playing kind of sly, doing a David Pearson thing, and had been holding back and saving something for the end, and it was just too strong there at the end. But the two of them just, waged a great battle, didn't touch, and Roger Lee Newton ended up coming out with the win. And, you look at this weekend, and, I think we're going to have somewhere between 35 and 40 cars, but of the 30 or so cars that are pre-entered right now, I really and honestly think that there are about 20 or 25 of them that could legitimately win. We've seen Ben Rowe have to race his way in through the last chance race, and I think he started, and we've seen this several times, where guys have started outside of the top 20 and they could come home with top 5 finishes. But, Daniel Hemrick will be back in the Carswell Motorsports car out of Georgia, and he won the first 2 races, so you'd have to say he's a contender. I think all of the cars that Preston Peltier has input with will be strong. They've been strong, and they seem to have the setup for Hickory. He'll be there in the Hamke House car, but Tyler Church, he won the race at Hickory last September, and Cole Tim right now, he's second points behind Tyler Church. They all are running similar, if not the same setups that Preston Peltier has kind of come up with, and I think all of those guys are going to be tough. But there are just so many good cars. DJ Shaw and Joey Dwyer coming down out of New England. I think those guys will be strong. Ben Rose always ran strong there. Harrison Burton. I mean, you could just go down the list. There are just so many guys that could run well in this race and have a chance to win it.
What is it about this race, from its inception almost, that just made it so special? Is it the timing of the event being Easter weekend? Is it just one of those events that attaches to a holiday weekend like this and becomes a signature race because of that? I mean, why this particular race, Alan?
I think it's a couple of things. Easter weekend is big, but I think it's really big in the South. and there are not a lot of big races going on as far as touring races go. You know, a lot of local tracks will try to do something during Easter, but if you go back and look, you know, when Hickory had Busch Series races, what's the Nationwide Series now, they always ran on that Saturday before Easter. And, you know, you look at the tradition of what the Easter Bunny 150 was, you know, what it actually started out as. It was the very first Pass South race there ever was back in 2006. So there's just been a lot of support for the race ever since it started. And you cut so many things together, racing at a legendary racetrack like Hickory Motor Speedway. It's kind of established itself in this century as a big race. You know, when you look at so many other races that are big in short track racing that you know have been around for 20 or 30 or 40 years, this is one that has kind of made its mark during our time, as opposed to you know in a time when our dads or granddads were coming along.
Well, you've definitely got a magic race this weekend for sure. Speaking of magic races, you've got one next weekend to open the Pass North Series. Might as well talk a little bit about that while we're here.
Yeah, it's actually, you know, coming up, as you said, next week. It was supposed to be a couple of weeks ago, and the weather has been so bad as far as, you know, snow and temperatures and things like that up north that we decided to postpone it a couple of weeks. And I can tell you that the folks in New England are raring to go, and that's going to be a huge weekend. You start the Pass North Super Late Model, Pass Modified, and Pass Sportsman season off on Saturday, and then on Sunday at Oxford there's a huge enduro on April the 27th. So a big way to get the Pass North season kicked off, get Oxford kicked off, and really get into the meat of this season where there's, you know, going to be a pass race between the North and the South every weekend.
Well, look forward to it for sure. Jacob and I are excited to come to Hickory this weekend and cover the Easter Bunny 150. And, of course, you got the Big North race kicking off next weekend at Oxford, just one of the top tracks in the country and most revered, as even more so in the North Country, but really nationwide. Everybody knows Oxford Plains. So shaping up to be a great season. Already the Pass South starting out one of the most competitive series we've seen in the Pass South in a long time. And if the Pass North is anything remotely like that, you guys are just in for a banner season in your organization.
Oh, yeah, and I think the North will be. I mean, the championship last year came down to 3 or 4 guys, and Cassius Clark ended up winning the championship by 4 points over Joey Dwyer. And so, I mean, really and honestly, that's, you know, separated by 2 positions on the racetrack. So, and I expect, you know, all those guys in the North, the young guys that ran well last year, and I think Johnny Clark and Ben Rowe, I think some of those veterans that have struggled the last couple of years, I think that they can bounce back too.
Sounds exciting, man. We're looking forward to it and excited about it, and we appreciate you coming on as always, and we're definitely looking forward to keeping in touch with you throughout the season, keeping us up to date on everything that's happening in both the Pass North and the Pass South series. Alan Dietz, thanks again for being on the show.
Glad to be on, Tom, and we appreciate your support and just want the fans to come out, and also remind them that if they can't come out, you can actually purchase it on Pass TV, powered by Motorsportsbroadcasting.com and Race22.com for just $25, basically the price for general admission tickets. So any fans anywhere across the country, if you can't be there in person, go ahead and buy it, and you're going to see a great show. 150 laps of super late model racing, Pass Pro late models, Super Cup Stock Car Series will be starting their season, and the Legends car. So I think it's well worth it.
That's Alan Dietz from the
Pass Series, and we're going to continue with more motorsports conversation right after we take a short break. You are listening to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show on Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Stay with us. For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-Supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
Hi, this is Jamie McMurray here for RAD, the entertainment industry's voice for road safety. Want to make a difference? It's simple. Be responsible. Plan ahead. Designate before you celebrate. Friends don't let friends drive drunk.
Baby, you can drive my car. Yes, I'm gonna be a star.
A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, RAD, the National Association of Broadcasters, and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and Kyle Souza around the round table tonight. And, you know, I'm feeling a little history lesson before we close tonight, Tom, since you and I are going to the Easter Bunny this weekend, and it does have quite an interesting history about it. But before we get there, Kyle, I know you've got some New England news and notes before we get to that and wrap this show up tonight.
Well, Jacob, let's throw just a couple things from the Northeast at you for what's going on this weekend. 2 tracks in service. This is to me here for some services this weekend. As far as the racing is concerned, Saturday afternoon, the Seacock Speedway will hold their second of 3 open practice test and tune sessions. I'll be in attendance this coming Saturday afternoon, so check Race Chaser Online early next week for what went on at Seacock, open practice number 2, as we prepare for the May 5th opening day with the Valenti Modified Racing Series to be a part of that. The other race track going on this weekend up here in the Northeast, the NASCAR Wheel and All-American Series continues at the Waterford Speed Bowl in Connecticut with the SK Modifieds, the Bob Valenti Auto Mall late models, the SK Lights, the Street Stocks, the Mini Stocks, and a 25-lapper for the iNext Legend cars. Qualifying begins at 5:30, the feature portion at 7. Waterford and Seacock in action, and we are closing in on the big heat. Down when we get towards May, it's straightforward. Up here in the Northeast, Thompson going to pick up the pace. Lee's going to pick up the pace. The Northeast is ready, and Waterford and Seacock putting in some action this weekend in what looks to be a sunny and warm weekend up here in the Northeast.
Let's see. Waterford's racing this weekend. I heard Kyle say there's late models. I heard Kyle say there's SKs. Gee, Tom, I wonder who we're going to be talking about next Thursday.
I think some guy named Rocco.
I would not bet against him. In fact, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, I would put money on it. But with that said, before we close tonight, Tom, as we've mentioned a couple times during the show tonight, you and I going to Hickory this weekend for the Easter Bunny 150. Let's talk a little bit about some of the history behind this event, because this is definitely an interesting event on the Pass South Tour. Started in 2006, and Mike Rowe, who went on to become the first ever series champion of the Pass South Series, took the win in the inaugural Easter Bunny, which, as we heard Alan Dietz say in the interview, was the first Pass South race in the history of the series. go to 2007, and this was where a hot streak got started. Ryan Lawler won this event and also went on to win the 2007 Pass South Championship. That would be the first of 2 races he would win to open the season before Corey Williams got on a hot streak and tried to take it away. Didn't work, but he certainly gave it a nice effort. 2008, Corey Williams would take revenge for that race he did not win in 2007 and would win the Easter Bunny in 2008. And while it would be his only win of the season, he would almost win the Pass South Championship, coming up just 16 points shy of winning that championship and infamously becoming the first driver to win the Easter Bunny but not go on to win the season title at the end of the year. So, interesting little tidbit there. 2009 was known as the year the Invaders came down and won, so to speak. And Kyle, I know this is one that's always talked about up north because that was the year that Ben Rowe came down, invaded the South, won the Easter Bunny, en route to 4 wins that season and a finish in the top 10 in every Path South start he made en route to the Path South Championship in 2009. That was the case of the North boys coming down and slaying their Southern counterparts.
Yeah, Jacob, and Ben Rowe is one of the biggest names up here in the North. I'll be headed up there again this year, but Ben is always a strong competitor in the Super Late Model Extravaganza that's known as the Oxford 250 up here in the Northeast. Ben is just a dominant super late model competitor wherever he takes it, Jacob, and I'm assuming that he'll be once again a threat once this year gets kicked off in 2014.
Yeah, let's look at 2010 now. We've made it that far. Preston Peltier won the Easter Bunny, his first 2 straight wins and the first of 3 total. He actually swept the 2 Hickory races that season en route to the championship, becoming the 4th driver in 5 seasons of the Path South Series to win the title. In 2011, the Easter Bunny was all the way at the end of April. Stephen Nasse, we've talked about him a few times, Tom. Nasse won the Easter Bunny in 2011, and if I had to pick one where it was really an upset victory, 2011 was definitely the Easter Bunny that sticks in my mind as the one where everybody left kind of shocked.
I was at that race. It was also at the race that Ben Rowe won as well. And, you know, both of those races were great examples of why you just can't pick a winner in this race because it comes down to the last lap half of the time or the last few laps. And there are so many competitive cars that enter this race that you can almost, by the time you get to the feature in the last 15 laps or so, you can almost take the top 5 and even the top 10 at times and just pretty much throw them all up in the air, and whichever one of them hits the ground first is the winner because you just really never know. Stephen Nasse really is, I thought even at that time, from what I had heard about him, that Stephen was a little bit unheralded. You know, he was one of these drivers that you just thought that certainly by now, being sitting in 2014, would have probably been up in one of NASCAR's higher series, like at least the truck level. But Stephen definitely is known, I think, probably even still for that race.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly that was a very interesting one that would lead actually back into a little bit more normalcy, if you will, for the Easter Bunny. 2012 is a race that goes down in history as the one that Kyle Grissom basically walked off with from everybody. There was no challengers to Grissom really in that day. He dominated the event. That was his first of 5 wins, and he needed every one of the 5 wins because he won the championship that season by 4 points over Preston Peltier and actually became the 6th driver to win the Easter Bunny and the series championship in the same season. And last year's Easter Bunny went down as the first 2-time winner in Easter Bunny history. Preston Peltier, though he did not run a full schedule in the Pass South Division in 2013, won his 2nd career Easter Bunny. Jay Fogelman won the championship, but Tom, we've talked about it, and I've mentioned it a few times in this look back through the years, if you will. The Easter Bunny is a race that not only defines your season in some cases, but oftentimes can lead you on a run of momentum 6 times in 8 seasons. The winner of the Easter Bunny has gone on to win the season-long championship.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat as well, Jacob, and I think it's a little bit telling because this race is just so hard to win, and you know, again, it's one of those situations where you have a race at the right time of year when there's not a whole lot of other racing going on for the division, and you have it at arguably the most infamous NASCAR short track in the country, or at least one of them. Certainly with the names that have run at Hickory, I mean, perhaps you could make a case for, you know, a track like Greenville Pickens or Winston-Salem, Bowman Gray Stadium in Winston-Salem, but Hickory certainly is one of the most heralded and renowned NASCAR short tracks in all of the country. And to have a division like Pass coming in on Easter weekend, and establishing this race, and having all of these drivers who have time on their hands because they don't have conflicts coming in to run it, it just makes for one of the most exciting races of the year on any short track anywhere, and I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, you got guys like Daniel Hemrick coming in. I mean, it's just going to be a fantastic show, and I'm looking forward to Saturday a lot.
Yeah, and I just learned I can't do math. Actually, 5 times out of 8 prior Easter Bunny 150s, the winner's gone on to win the championship. But, you know, they don't pay me to be able to do math. They pay me to run my mouth. I don't even know why they do that. But, you know, I try. And, you know, you were talking about that entry list earlier, Tom. I'm looking down it right here. 2 things I want to look at real quickly before we call it a wrap here tonight. Young Guns and Invaders. Young Guns in the form of guys like Harrison Burton, Tate Fogelman, Jared Irvin, Trevor Knowles, Joey Padgett. I was surprised to see him on the entry list, but that's going to be an interesting one, I think, to watch this weekend. Brandon Setzer, Dennis Setzer's son, Patrick Staropoli, Cole Tim, Austin Terrio coming down from Maine, and he kind of falls into both categories here. One of the younger guys and one of the Northern Invaders coming down this weekend, and there's just so many storylines from these young guns, Tom, that any one of them, I feel like, could come up and snatch a really strong finish there on Saturday.
Well, and you heard some of the guys that Alan Dietz mentioned earlier on in the program, you know, Preston Peltier's bunch. You know, there's just so many drivers, and, you know, I just think this is one of those races that, you know, could really, really turn out to be a barn burner. And by the way, for those of you who can't make it to Hickory Motor Speedway, don't forget, Alan Dietz mentioned it in his interview, but you can watch the race on the internet. Just go to ProAllStarsSeries.com and look up all the information. But their special Pass TV broadcast is going to be taking place. I think it's $25, and certainly a good price and a fair price to watch the race. I guess it's the price of one adult ticket. So you can watch it in the comfort of your home and check it out. So, but if you're anywhere within, you know, a handful of hours of Hickory Motor Speedway, come on in and check that out on Saturday night. That's going to be a great show.
Do it. We'll be there. That's another reason. Not that we're anything too special, but we try to be.
Well, we do our best, but it's not about us. It's about the drivers, and we're just going to be there having a good time and doing as much coverage as we can for both Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. And Kyle, I know that you've got some stuff going on this weekend as well, so looks like Mother Nature going to cooperate with all of us for our various racing excursions, so we should have a lot to talk about on next week's 2 shows, Jacob, on Monday and Wednesday.
That's right. Next week, Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, Motorsports Madness. Nothing changed there. This week, or next week upcoming, is going to be a special edition of the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern so as to not conflict with Thursday's running of the Denny Hamlin Short Track Showdown, because I know a lot of race fans and most of the drivers that we would try to get a hold of are going to be otherwise preoccupied on the racetrack. So if you're in the Virginia area next Thursday, go check that out, and we'll be talking about it and previewing that next week on Wednesday for the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show. But Tom, believe it or not, that is going to do it here tonight for another edition of the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, and we're sending it home. So for Kyle Souza and Tom Baker, I'm Jacob Seelman for Speed 77 Radio and Race Chaser Online. Want to say a special thank you to our partners at Stock Car Steel and SRI Supplies, where you can go for all your scrap metal and shop supply needs. They've got everything you need to build up or refurbish your racing vehicle. And for all of us at Speed 77 Radio, you can catch us back on the air on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern for Motorsports Madness, where we get wild, we get crazy, and it gets a little bit unpredictable at times, but that's just the fun of it. We talk everything from NASCAR to open wheel to late models, pavement, dirt, sprint cars, sports cars, you name it, I'm sure you'll find it on the Madness. It's Motorsports Madness, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on Speed 77 Radio and RaceChaserOnline.com. So race fans, this is where we part for the evening, but until this weekend, if you're at the track on Saturday or wherever you might be, this is Jacob Seelman reminding all you race fans out there to keep it off the wall until we meet again. And if you're at Hickory this weekend, we'll see you at the track. Have a great evening, race fans. So long.